Hi, I'm Tessa, a veteran educator working in the field of special education.
And I'm Kim, mom of 2 autistic boys and a late diagnosed autistic person myself.
And welcome to Totally Over the Spectrum, where we dive into embracing autism through understanding and support.
Hi, and welcome to episode 27, where we're talking about elopement.
Okay. Near and dear to both our hearts.
You know, the fear that you have as a parent when your child just takes off unexpectedly is indescribable.
And no matter what you say, it does not stop them from continuing and pursuing their goal.
Yeah, and especially if they are non-speaking and have no sense of personal safety.
I agree with you.
So let me start by just saying that there are a whole bunch of different words. A lot of people are like, elopement, they're going to get married. That's the current term, but usually, you know, people say they're a runner or a flight risk or have wandering behavior. Like there's a lot of different terminology, but basically it's when they take off without warning.
Yes. Flight risk is another one. Is commonly used as well.
Yeah, and that's usually used at school in their individualized education program or in their behavior and safety plan. And we have a whole episode on what we call IEPs. Episode 14, I can put a link for that.
Excellent.
People just don't understand that it's a constant worry.
Mm-hmm. It is. And, you know, from an educator's point of view, you know, I clearly remember the first day that we met and you're like, oh, hi, I'm Kim, I'm Peter and stuff. Yeah, we go through all of this and and he's a runner. So, you know.
Wear your running shoes.
Yep.
That's
and, you know, and have a great day. And off you went. And I was like, oh, great. So, you know, we're just going to talk about reasons why kids want to run. And then, you know, and I think we would have to discuss strategies in a different episode because there's a lot that is involved in that.
So I had this broken down. See, we don't actually talk about these before we do them. So we're on a little bit of a different page here today. But I sort of had strategies today. So like behavior and strategies, because I think the behavior, the strategy that you're going to use is very specific to the behavior that's presenting. So this might take place over a couple of episodes for sure, and there will probably be strategies on both, but I sort of have it like today is like the behavior and like the intent behind the running behavior with the strategies. And then for the next one, I was thinking more about just sort of what I affectionately call Peter proofing, which is really when you make sure that your environment is unescapable.
Okay. All right.
Does that make sense? Can you roll with that today?
I can roll with anything you throw at me, Kimberly.
Yeah, I can't. So it's great that you can. Glad one of us is flexible. All right. I wanted to jump straight into strategies. So for me, all behavior happens for a reason.
Okay. So let's break down some of the reasons why kids run.
Okay. So I basically have this in sensory seeking behavior, sensory avoidant behavior, and then kind of just for fun. Okay. Those are 3. And you might have different ones, but let's just you can fluidly put in yours around mine. Okay. And that's cool.
All right.
So the first one, sensory seeking. So that's basically, is your child running towards something?
Okay.
Right? Yep. So do they see a playground and they're running towards it? Do they see an object that they want to investigate? So they're running away from you or from their support person to go to get something that they want.
Yeah. So that can also be brought into the line of, engaging sensory seeking and attention seeking, right? So they could also want to go and get the attention of someone or something else as well. So often they are, you know, they go hand in hand.
So I think that the strategy for this is a great opportunity to teach them to request, right? To ask for things.
Yeah. And whether that's done on, you know, on an iPad or using ProLoco to go or any other communication app, it is a good opportunity to teach them that request and reinforce it and then follow through with it.
Right. It depends on their level of expressive language. So if they are non-speaking, like my son Peter is, you might use apps. You could use sort of, there are a lot of different assistive communication options out there. So you could have something really low tech, like a sheet with a picture exchange communication system,
yeah.
right? So, and those are basically just little pictures, like if they're constantly running towards the iPad, if that's across the room at school or something, and they constantly want that, you would have a picture of the iPad and stop them and get them to request that picture, and they could just hand it to you, or they could point to the picture, or those kinds of things. This is something that really the school's speech and language pathologist should be working with you if they're at that level, or a private speech and language pathologist, but it is something that you can do at home. So lots and lots of options. Like you said, Proloquo to Go is one of the high-tech systems, because it's an app that you can get, and lots of schools use that one. There are also other great alternatives to that. Touch Chat is a really great alternative, and LAMP is a really great alternative.
Yeah. And before you actually get into all of those alternatives, the PEC system is introduced first in order to set the foundations of effective communication between yourself and your child before you could move on to more advanced systems.
Yeah.
But we have an episode on that covering all of that information.
Which one was that?
Oh, good. That's your job, not mine.
Okay. I will put a link to it. I don't remember off the top of my head which one that is, but I will definitely put a link to it. You can also have a calendar at home and make it part of a schedule if they're trying to run to a specific place, like the playground. So you can build that into their routine, so they can have that expectation that that's a place they can go to, and they can also use the calendar as a kind of picture exchange communication system, PEC system, to point to that word or the picture on your calendar, saying that is where I would like to go. Mm-hmm. And then once you have that sort of positive reinforcement, right? Because sometimes you'll be able to go, but sometimes you won't. But in the beginning, if you're able to positively reinforce, hey, you requested this and we're able to do this thing, even if it's for 5 minutes, then they understand, oh, hey, and when I ask, I get this thing.
Yes.
Right. And that encourages communication.
Yeah. And it reduces the need for eloping. So it goes hand in hand. It's a wonderful way to reinforce both.
Right. And you can also model the behavior, stopping, waiting, you can also, if you're trying to work on communication, say, oh, you wanted the iPad. Okay, let's get the iPad, right? Like it's that kind of repetition. Mm-hmm. And they might never use verbal communication. Everyone is different. So you have to find what works best for your child.
Yeah, I agree.
The next one I have is sensory avoiding.
Yeah.
And this one is a little bit harder because there's usually anxiety or fear, right? Or an overwhelm.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a sensory overload is what I look at it. The environment is too much. There's too many stimulants in the environment. Whether it be light, whether it be sound, whether it be a smell, it's just way too much. And then they're trying to escape it to get to an environment in where they can feel safe, they can feel calm. And this is less likely to happen versus seeking, a sensory need. A sensory overload is less likely to occur than the other, but it still does occur.
Yeah, and for Peter, he's terrified of animals. So animal goes by, he's gone. He's out of there, right? And he's fast. Even at a really young age, he was fast. So you have to be so aware of the environment and knowing, oh, I see 2 blocks away, there's a dog on a leash, and yeah, it looks like they might be coming this way. So now I have to make sure that I'm in a position to contain him if he decides that he's going to go.
Yeah. Using that as one of your examples, I would not necessarily bring his attention to it immediately. Maybe he is, he's enjoying the scenery, he's looking around, he's humming to himself, he's in a great mood. I would make sure that I would position myself between him and the dog. I would make sure that we were linked arms at that point so that, I'm ready. But when we got close enough and his attention did, transfer to the animal, then I would say, I see the dog, you are safe. you need to stay with Miss Marshall, right? And I will keep you safe. And so those are one of the strategies in which I would use, is that I'm already starting to do things without him knowing that I'm putting barriers in place for him to prevent him or reduce the likeliness of running.
Yeah, and sometimes kids just bolt and you don't see it coming. So one of the things that I always did and still do is I always position myself between him and the road. Right? I'm always next to the road, he is not, because he would have to go in front of me or behind me in order to reach the road.
Yeah.
Right? And it's second nature now. I don't even think about it. That is just where I stand.
Yeah. And I agree with you. That's what I do with all of my students, is even if we cross the road and we're, going in the opposite direction, I automatically switch my student to the inside of the road.
And you are going to need time and patience, because fear is a really powerful motivator.
Yes. And when you're addressing a fear, you're going to, look into exposure therapy with that, is where you introduce, your child to what they fear or their sensory overload in very small, amounts of time, and then build that resiliency over time to a point where they're able to regulate through that situation. They may not always want to accept the situation, but at least where they can regulate it and keep themselves safe.
Yeah, and we go really in depth into that in episode 22 when we talk about anxiety.
Yeah.
So what if your child is just running for fun, or you don't know why they're running, they're just going?
That is a tricky one, because if it could be, sensory seeking, it could be attention seeking, and they kind of, the subtleties are there. Or I would say that the reason why they do things for fun is because it's giving them some form of attention, right? Whether it's seeking attention from you, seeking attention from a stranger, or seeking that sensory need from the environment. It all falls into that same category.
Like, I know Peter's opportunistic, so he would sometimes distract one of his educational assistants, like, oh, I threw the ball over there, and oops, now you're gonna have, and then they would go and get it, and inevitably he'd take off because he could. Right? So, and I think that was not to get them to chase him, but because I think that was sensory seeking in a way, because I think there were places he wanted to go.
Yes. Which then ties into, one of my number one that I find is why kids do like to elope or to run, is the communication challenges, right? Not being, sensory seeking, but not having the language or the communication ability to convey that is what they desire. Whether they're seeking for something or avoiding something, it comes down to communication. So 9 times out of 10, the communication barrier is one of the keys aspects to why kids or like to run.
So Peter happens to like maps, and he also likes to look at houses online. So he will go on to realtor sites, and he can see the insides of houses that are up for sale. And he might decide, oh, well, I want to go see that house in person. So he would like to sort of run and take off, because he knows he can't just go into someone's house, without permission.
Yeah. And that comes back to the lack of, which was also on my list, is the lack of understanding of danger, right? They are little daredevils, right? They just live vicariously through everybody. So they were like, oh, prime example. I like that house. I saw it on Google Maps. I saw it on the realtor estate. I'm going to go look at it. So the dangers of how to get there and going into a person's home without their permission or consent, or without a realtor, none of that occurs to them, right? So that lack of safety is not there, right?
But I think he also knows that even if he asks to go to that place, I'm going to say no. You can't just show up at someone's house and say, oh, hey, my son wants to see the inside of your house because it was up for sale, right? You can't just do that. So, and he's very put out by this, like, well, why can't I? So he's going to find a way to do it,
Yeah.
regardless, because there's never going to be a way to say yes to that request.
Yeah. So then that's when it comes down to the communication piece, right? Is not being able to communicate effectively to you what he wants, and, you know, you telling him, denying him access. So they all intertwine with each other at some point or throughout the need for eloping. But it is, as we both can say, this is a nerve-wracking experience for anybody who is facing this challenge.
Yeah, I've had quite a few really, really scary moments over the years. Yeah, and I do not wish that feeling on anyone.
Yep. So
So strategies for him when he's away from me. Like we will talk about sort of strategies for the home in the next one, I think, because it will get to be a little bit long. But because the school has lost him. Okay.
not me.
No, not you. It wasn't you. It was never with you, because you set the groundwork right away, and he ran on you the first day you had him. And then what, the second day he tried one more time,
Yep.
and then never again.
No, because I followed through with consequences with him.
Right.
And I picked up on his body language the very first day. I knew that when he looked in a direction more than 3 times, that was my cue to say that's where he's going to run. And even though his positioning didn't change, his eye gaze did. And I was like, gotcha. So, so I know your telltale signs. I know exactly where you're going. So the first time I had to give him that opportunity. I had to give him that false sense of, of freedom over there in order for me to be able to follow through with the consequence, to say, hey, if you do this without my permission, without my guidance, without me being with you, the consequence is this. He did not like it because I followed through on it. The very next time he had the opportunity to do that.
And tell people what the consequence is, because everyone has a different idea of what that might look like. It wasn't like it was something really bad.
His consequence was not going out for recess.
Yeah.
He got to stay in class and just, play with Play-Doh or color. And
Which are not his preferred things.
no, it is not his preferred tasks and his items. So I made it very, very boring for him. And, but I also encouraged him that if he wanted to go and see something, that he come and ask me. And if it was possible, we would go and see it. But I also had to give him that sense of freedom. I didn't want him to think that because he was out in the playground and the field, that I was going to constantly be one step ahead of him. It was a give and take relationship. I said to him, I'm allowing you to come out here, but you need to listen to me. If you choose not to listen to me, this is what the consequences are. But when we are out here, I'm going to let you enjoy the outdoors on your own time, in your own way. I'm not going to tell you what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. That's not enjoyment. So when he realized that, hey, I do have a certain sense of freedom when I'm out there, but
there are boundaries.
But yeah.
So he has opportunity, and then he needs to exercise his own sort of self-control, not to run, but also he needs to exercise his requesting ability.
Yeah. So it was a lot of learning to do for him, a lot of emotional regulations. He had to, that urge to want to go and do things. He really had to stop and think about it and control it, because he knew that he had somebody who was going to say, no, that's not going to happen. That is not. And with him, I set the precedence. I said, you only get one chance for safety. If you don't listen, it's not 3, it's 1. Miss Marshall counts only 1. And if you don't listen, we're done. And he knew that you never cross that line in the sand with Miss Marshall.
And let's be clear for everybody that you knew Peter. You had a sense of him really quickly, and you two had a relationship really quickly. And these are things that would work for him specifically, given his ability level, given his personality, all of those things. This is going to look different for every single child.
Absolutely.
Because it has to be within their ability.
It does. And it each child I evaluate based on who they are, their developmental stage, their age, their cognitive ability, their physical ability, and the environment in which I'm going to be in, right? So with Peter, it was gradual over time. We'd start off with the playground, then we extended it into the field, where his proximity to me was, I gave him a certain amount of leeway, but always to the point where I could catch him. It never went past that, right? But I also, reinforced that sense of security and that partnership between him and me, and said, okay, you want to go out and you want to explore, we will do it together. And we went everywhere together. I have taken him places on trains and, automobiles and all type of vehicles, except for a plane. That's the only thing that I haven't taken him on. And we've gone through some very densely populated areas. And, we've gone to Raptors games, we've gone to baseball games, we've gone to, an array of activities and facilities. And he has never run from me.
Not since the first 2 days.
Nope.
That was it. But he has had other people supporting him at school, and he's been, of course, to high school now, and they've lost him. He's been gone. And it is so, so scary that you get the phone call saying, Peter ran, we have him, he's safe. He was almost hit by a bus. He's run out into the road. He ran into people's houses. And one day he was left unattended for half an hour outside. They forgot him, didn't make it on the bus. Luckily for everyone involved, he stayed where he was supposed to stay, and he didn't take that opportunity to elope.
Which says to me that he knew that the environment that he was put in and the situation what he put in, there was a higher level sense of fear for him in that. Like, there was no adults around, there was nothing happening, and he must have felt afraid. To the point, or a sense of fearfulness where he stayed put. So
it was no longer fun for him.
No.
In that moment.
No, it was not.
And I could tell that he was feeling that when I picked him up.
Yeah. So that attention-seeking element was not there. It was removed. So therefore, I'm in trouble now.
Yeah. So after that incident, I needed to think of different ways to be able to track him, basically, when I wasn't with him, because I couldn't necessarily rely that this was never going to happen again.
Okay.
Right? And once that trust in school is lost, I can tell you that is not coming back quickly. So the first thing I did was I went and got Apple AirTags. And these are not recommended by Apple for putting on people, for tracking people. There are certainly pros and cons. I am not affiliated with Apple in any way. This was just the first thing that I did. I got a case for it so that he couldn't take it apart. It was you needed Allen keys to put it into the case, and then I had to get a D-ring with a screw through it, like you would find on your purse, to put that on the case, and I sewed loops into the pockets of all of his pants and his shorts, so that I needed a screwdriver to put it into his pocket and to take it out again. Otherwise, he would just take it out.
Take it out, yeah.
Right? So I did that for a while. And the pros to that were I could very easily look for him on my iPhone. It works indoors, but it pings off of other iPhones. So if there are not other iPhones in the vicinity, you can't track it.
Yeah. So if he was out in the woods somewhere and there was nobody else within that vicinity,
it would not work.
It's not a device that is going to accurately.
If he's in a moving vehicle, it cannot track him that quickly. So you cannot find him on a moving vehicle. So yeah, there are certainly some pros and cons, but it is very, very accurate, and it works indoors, right? So you can walk around with your phone and it will go beep, 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 beep until you get to the thing. Recently, I purchased a GPS watch through Angel Sense. And again, I'm not affiliated with them, and this is fairly new, so I don't really have a really good critique of this. I can tell you their website sucks. Their customer service is really good. It is a very big device. I would not recommend it for a small child. I know you can get them in tag forms, but I did not get that. I got the watch for them. And It is quite accurate outside, right? Because it is GPS. It is expensive to buy and it is expensive to maintain because you need to have a subscription to use it.
Yeah. This is commonly used with kids with high flight risks, right? So that is, I've seen this on a lot of students who are very high flight risk students. And yeah, it does work. And a lot of parents have said, yeah, it is an expensive membership to have. But ultimately, they say, I really, it gives me peace of mind. So
Yeah, it does not work indoors because it is GPS. So it might be able to tell you he's at a shopping mall, but not where in the mall he is, right? The other thing is it has two-way communication. So he could push the button and call me. It will call me on my phone. Or, and this is why it's not always allowed in some schools, is I can listen in on what's going on around him, which I do not do because I consider that to be an invasion of privacy. The school should be able to function without me listening in. So I do not listen in when he is at school. I have not even tried it.
And that's where the policies of an infringement of that comes into place, and that's why a lot of schools don't allow it, but they do allow the tags to be in there.
Yeah, so I haven't had a problem with the school. I think I don't know what their policy is, but I just consider that a breach of privacy, and I won't do it. Something else about that watch. What was I going to say? I've totally lost my train of thought now. It comes with a locking watch strap, so he can't take it off. You need a special key to go in to take it off. So once it's on, it's on.
Okay. So it's much like your little D
rings.
Rings over there. It's once it's on, it's there.
And again, it's a fairly recent purchase, so I'm not 100% sure how I feel about it. I don't know if I will continue it. I did use funding in order to purchase it, which is the Ontario Autism Program funding. We have all of the funding information available on our website. There will be a link for that. So you can look into all of the different funding options that you can get. We are trying to keep these down to 30 minutes, which is why we're dividing this into different segments, because there is a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, there is. And there's one more support that you can have in regards to prevent or reduce eloping, and that is an autism dog, right? They are, it's not your go-to because Peter would have a heart attack and die and he would never move. So the dog would do its job very effectively. I know when he's come here to visit me and in my home, and I would, unlike your home, which we will discuss in the next episode about Peter-proofing it, you lock your doors. Mine is just like your deadbolt that you can just turn and you're out the door. So I used to put my dog on a downstay in front of the door, and Peter never went anywhere near it. So that was my Peter-proofing my home when he came over here. Yeah. So, which is funny because, it was the only dog that he would walk next to while going for a walk. And I don't think there's any other dog that ever...
He trusted her.
Yes, he did.
He did. She was a very, very good dog.
Yeah, so autism dogs is another avenue which people can look at. It is a long wait list. The criterias to obtain a autism dog are very lengthy and very intense. But
you're a 3-week stay at the facility with your child in order to get all of the appropriate training to receive the dog.
And then of course there comes the added layer of caregiving for a pet and the emotional connections that they build, right? The codependency on the dog becomes really, really high. So I want people to really look into that very carefully because, once the dog no longer can provide that service and is to be retired or, and the circle of life passes away, that emotional aspect of it is extremely tough.
Yeah, I've had people suggest that to me over the years, and I'm like, that's another person I have to clean up after and cut their nails and brush their teeth and feed and do all of those. And I'm like, I don't want it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Even when Peter was younger and not afraid of dogs, I was like, no, that is way too much work for me just to have a support out in the community, so that he's not like, because Peter didn't need it for anxiety or for comfort or for any of those other reasons. It's purely just for eloping. So that's an awful lot of work for me just to have a support out in the community to make sure he doesn't run.
Yeah. So I think we've pretty much covered all the bases as we think we are. But if there's anybody out there that have other suggestions or methods that you use, please do share with us. We're happy to provide that information on our websites, and we always look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, we love the comments. I love reading the comments.
Yeah. Well, until the next time of Peter Proofing Your Home, have a great day, and we will see you soon.
We'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in. If you know someone who might find this episode helpful, feel free to share. Also, check out our website and socials linked in the description.